Hello, this is Mystic Magic, and today I'm going to be reviewing one of my friend's commander deck, and that commander is Edgar Markov. Now, Edgar Markov is a legendary creature vampire knight. He's a 4/4 for 6 Eminence. Whenever you cast another vampire spell, if Edgar Markov is in the command zone or on the battlefield, create a 1/1 black vampire creature token. First strike, haste. Whenever he attacks, you put a +1/+1 counter on each vampire you control. So the reason Edgar Markov is so good, not because of what he does when he's on the battlefield, but because of his first Eminence ability there, and that is the ability to get a token whenever you cast another vampire token. Now the way this deck runs is it runs a lot of low to the ground vampires, one drop things like that, so you just amass a board full of tokens and then just swing out for the win. So if you haven't guessed that by now, this is a vampire tribal deck. And well, let's jump right in. I've divided it up into 3 categories. I have the mana base, I have the creatures, and I have the non-creature spells. And let's get right into the mana base. For the mana base, we have Cliff Chop Retreat, Isolated Chapel, and Dragon Skull Summit, all 3 of the check lands. Have Rugged Prairie, Graven Cairns, and Fetid Heath, all 3 of the filter lands. Inspiring Statuary and Concealed Courtyard, the 2 fast lands from Kaladesh. Have Sacred Foundry, Blood Crypt, Godless Shrine, good old Shocks. We have Temple of Silence and Temple of Malice. Not as fast of lands, but they do get you the scry. Battlefield Forge and Caves of Koilios, the 2 pain lands from Origins. Have a Tainted Field. We have Luxury Suite, the player land from Battle Bond, comes in untapped if you have 2 or more opponents. Canyon Slough, the cycle land from Amonkhet. Smoldering Marsh from Battle for Zendikar. We have Blast Zone from the newest set, War the Spark. Enters the battlefield with a charge counter on it. Taps for a colorless. Double X to put X charge counters on it. And 3, sacrifice it. Destroy each non-land permanent with converted mana cost equal to the number of charge counters on Blast Zone. So this is used as kind of a board wipe in the deck just to get some pesky threats out of the way that you may not want. Urborg, Tomb of Yawgmoth, to make everything swamps, just to make sure your mana is fixed if you need black. Have Cavern of Souls, the ultimate tribal land, enters the battlefield, choose a creature type, taps for a colorless, and taps for 1 mana for any creature with that creature type, and that creature cannot be countered. Unclaimed Territory, taps for 1 mana of the chosen creature type. Ancient Tomb, shocks you for 2 colorless. Command Tower, taps for 1 of your commander's identity. Mana Flux, taps for 1 of any for only 1 life. Of course, Reliquary Tower, it's got a nice promo there. And a mountain, 5 swamps, and 2 plains. That is about it for the land category. Now let's get into the creatures. And the commander, being what he is, he makes vampire tokens because of the creatures, so this deck will have quite a lot of creatures. Over 50% of this deck is creatures, so this will be a big category. First off, we have Vona, Butcher of Magan. It's one of the higher costing cards in this deck. 5 mana for a 4/4 Vigilance Lifelink. And tap it, pay 7, destroy target non-land permanent. Activate this ability only during your turn. Especially in Commander, this is a very good card because you can pay some life just to destroy a permanent that you don't like on the battlefield. And Vona also has lifelink, so you can also start gaining some of that life back. Shadow Alley Denizen. It is a 1/1 for 1, another 1-drop just to get a vampire token. Cruel Celebrant to extort some opponents when creatures die. Sanctum Seeker. This is a really good card in the deck because it says whenever a vampire you control attacks, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. So if you're attacking with a whole bunch of vampire tokens, you can just steal a whole bunch of damage from them right off the bat and gain a whole bunch of life. Vampire Lacerator. It is a 2/2 for 1, just another 1 drop. It makes you lose 1 life at the beginning of your upkeep, but that's not too bad in Commander. Mirror Entity. Now this is a card I think should be played in a lot more tribal decks. It is a 3 mana for a 1/1 shapeshifter that has all creature types. But the good ability on this is you can pay X, and until end of turn, creatures you control have base power and toughness XX and gain all creature types. This is good not just because it's also a vampire, but because it can turn your tokens into whatever power and toughness you want. So you can eventually get in for a whole bunch of damage with this, and you can also do it at instant speed. Vampire Cutthroat, just a 1 drop. Legion Lieutenant, a lord in the deck to buff all of your other vampires for only 2 mana. Yahenni, Undying Partisan. He's a legendary creature, Aetherborn Vampire, for 3 mana, 2/2 haste. And whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, you may put a +1/+1 counter on him. Well, it's not you may, you do have to put the +1/+1 counter on him. Sacrifice another creature, he gains indestructible until end of turn. One of the things that the deck is very good at doing is using him to extort opponents for a whole lot of damage when board wipes go off. So with him, he is an unlimited sack outlet, and with cards like the Cruel Celebrant, whenever a creature you control dies, they lose 1 life. So if they play a board wipe, you can sacrifice all your creatures to Yahenni and extort them for a whole bunch of damage. Oh, also, he will gain indestructible when you do this, so if the board wipe only destroys, he'll stay, and he'll have a whole bunch of counters on him from your opponent's creatures getting board wiped. Stromkirk Captain. Other vampires have +1/+1 and first strike. Let's get that out of the way over there. Mavern Thane, Dusk Apostle. He creates a token whenever another non-token vampire attacks, so he can just help you get an even bigger board and swing out for more and more damage. Falconwrath Gorger, a 2/1 for 1. Bloodline Keeper. Now, this is a flip card. The front side is a 3/3 flyer for 4. You can tap it to put a 2/2 black vampire creature token with flying onto the battlefield. Then you can pay 1 black to transform it. Activate this ability if you control 5 or more vampires. And it transforms into Lord of the Lineage. Flying. Other vampire creatures you control get +2/+2. This is very, very good. And again, tap, put a 2/2 black vampire creature token with flying onto the battlefield. Let's flip that back there. Next we have Vampire Hex Mange. This is a 2/1 for 2 with first strike, but the good part about this is it's sacrifice it, remove all counters from target permanent. This can be used to instantly kill a planeswalker or to remove a bunch of counters from a thick creature your opponents control or anything. Stromkirk Condemned. This is a 2/2 for 2. But it also has the ability of discarding a card. Vampires you control get +1/+1 until end of turn. Sadly, you can only activate it once, but it will help you get in for extra damage. Olivia's Bloodsworn, 2/1 for 2. Falconwrath Aristocrat. Gifted Aetherborn. Drana, Liberator of Malakir. Drana is a very good card in this deck. First of all, she's a legendary creature, vampire ally, 2/3 for 3, flying first strike. Whenever she deals combat damage to a player, put a +1/+1 counter on each attacking creature you control. Now, one of the things people don't know about Drana a lot of the times is because she has first strike, she will deal damage before all of your other creatures. She'll deal damage in a first strike phase before all your other creatures. So when she hits, all of your other creatures will get a +1/+1 counter, and then they will hit. So this just helps you deal that much more damage. Vindictive Vampire. This is one of those cards that extorts your opponents when a creature you control dies. Vampire Nocturnus. This is a card that can help you buff all of your vampires as long as there is a black card on top of your library. Pulse Tracker, just a 1/1 for 1. Blood Artist, this is another creature that will extort your opponents when a creature dies. Untitled Vanguard, not only is this a 1/1 for 1, but it also buffs itself when it attacks, and if you'd like to save it in case of a board wipe, you can pay 4 life to give it indestructible. Indulgent Aristocrat, this is a really good card because you can just pay 2 mana to sacrifice a vampire token and put a +1/+1 counter on each vampire you control. It also has lifelink. Twilight Prophet, this is a 4 mana flying 2/4. Ascend, if you control 10 or more permanents, you get the City's Blessing for the rest of the game. And at the beginning of your upkeep, if you have the City's Blessing, reveal the top card of your library and put it into your hand. Each opponent loses X life and you gain X life, where X is that card's converted mana cost. So if you have 10 or more permanents, which in this deck you usually will have, you can basically get the top card of your library into your hand at the beginning of your upkeep. It just helps you draw an extra card, and it will extort your opponents for however much mana that card costs. It might not be too much since this is a relatively low to the ground deck, but it does help you draw an extra card. Viscera Seer, it's a 1/1 for 1, and you can sacrifice a creature to scry 1. This is again a great sack outlet in case of a board wipe if you just want to scry away the top of your deck and just set up your draws and make sure you're getting what you need. Vicious Conquistador, just a 1/1, a 1/2 rather. Ghouldra's Assassin, it is a 1/1 for 1 that can also be leveled up and turned into a removal. So if it's at level 4, it can tap for 1 black and tap it. Target creature gets -4/-4 until end of turn. Olivium, Mobilize for War, 3 mana 3/3 flyer. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, you may discard a card. If you do, put a +1/+1 counter on that creature. It gains haste until end of turn and becomes a vampire in addition to its other types. Vampire Nighthawk, it's a 2/3 flying Death Touch lifelink for 3. Blood Seeker, this just helps you extort your opponents whenever they play creatures. This is also good against opposing token decks, because whenever they have a creature enter the battlefield under their control, you can have them lose 1 life. Bloodthrone Vampire, this is another sack outlet, and you can just pump this up to become super big and smack your opponents for a whole bunch of damage. Kalidas, Trader of Get, it's a 3/4 lifelink for 4. If a non-token creature an opponent controls would die, instead exile that card and put a 2/2 black zombie creature token onto the battlefield. This is very good because if you can give him indestructible or save him from a board wipe somehow, you'll be creating lots of zombie tokens. Now I know zombies isn't the theme of this deck, but it's just good to get a bigger board state. Quag Vampires, 1/1 for 1. Skymarcher Aspirant, this is a 2/1 for 1, and if you have the City's Blessing, it will gain flying. Tithe Drinker, it is a 2/1 for 2 lifelink, and whenever you play a spell, you can pay 1. If you do, each opponent loses 1 life, and you gain that much life. Pitiless Pontiff can sacrifice another creature to give it Death Touch and indestructible. Ghouldra's Vampire, it's a 1/1 for 1. Falconwrath Noble, just another creature that extorts your opponents. Stromkirk Noble, whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you may put a +1/+1 counter on it. Insolent Neonate, a 1/1 for 1 with Menace, and you can discard a card, sacrifice it, and draw a card if you would like. Colostria Highborn, this is a 2/2 for 2 black. Whenever Colostria Highborn or another vampire you control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, you may pay 1. If you do, target player loses 2 life and you gain 2. Again, it's very good in case of a board wipe. Asylum Visitor, at the beginning of each player's upkeep, if that player has no cards in their hand, you draw a card and you lose a life. So this can help refill your hand if your opponents are running low. Just put a bigger gap in between you and your opponents in the game. Captivating Vampire. He is a vampire lord, gives other vampires +1/+1, and you can tap 5 vampires you control to gain control of target creature, and it becomes a vampire. So if your opponent plays a big, thick creature such as an Ulamog, something like that, you can just tap 5 of your vampire tokens, gain control of it, and you will have an Eldrazi vampire. And now for the non-creature spells. So first off, we have some removal. Have Bedevil, destroy target artifact, creature, or planeswalker. We have a 2-sided card, Wear and Tear. Destroy target artifact or destroy target enchantment. Anguish Unmaking, nice foil there. It's an instant, exile target non-land permanent, you lose 3 life. Utter End, just 4 mana instant, exile target non-land permanent. Swords to Plowshares, just typical commander removal. Path to Exile. Vindicate. And we have Vanquishers Banner, which is a vampire tribal card. It's a 5 mana artifact. When it enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. Creatures of the chosen type get +1/+1, and whenever you cast a creature spell of the chosen type, draw a card. Radiant Destiny. You can choose a creature type, and they get +1/+1, and if you have the city's blessing, they also have vigilance. Door of Destinies, a 4 mana artifact. Choose a creature type when it enters. Whenever you cast a spell of the chosen type, put a charge counter on Door of Destinies. Creatures you control of the chosen type get +1/+1 for each charge counter on it. Now this is very good because of all the low-cost creatures in the deck. Just when you cast all of them, you can flop a bunch down, get a bunch of charge counters, and buff them all up. And of course, Coat of Arms. Each creature gets +1/+1 for each other creature in play that shares a creature type with it. Obelisk of Erd. This is a buff artifact that your vampires can actually help pay for. Shared Animosity. Whenever a creature you control attacks, it gets +1/+0 until end of turn for each other attacking creature that shares a creature type with it. Enlightened Tutor. Search your library for an artifact or enchantment card, reveal that card, shuffle your library, and put that card on top of it. This helps you get out any of your vampire tribal cards like Shared Animosity or anything that you want. Anointed Procession to double all the vampire tokens that you make. Necropotence, just in case you need to spend some life and refill your hand quick. Legion's Landing, because it creates a vampire token, and whenever you attack with 3 or more creatures, transform it. And the backside is a land on Danto the First Fort. It taps for a white and 3 and tap it to create a 1/1 white vampire creature token with lifelink. Skull Clamp, just to sacrifice some vampire tokens to draw some cards. And of course, as the last card, we have Soul Ring. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it. If you liked the video, just remember, like it, subscribe it, tell all your friends about it. And I wanted to make an announcement. We will have someone else uploading videos on this channel now. He will also be doing some Commander reviews. This is one of my friends. He'll be doing some online and some in real life as well. And just be on the lookout for that. Sorry I haven't uploaded that much recently. I mean, I know I've just gotten started, but there was a gap in between my first video and this one, and I will try to upload more in the future. Well, thank you for watching. This was Mystic Magic. See you guys next time.